Hi, I'm Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Abstract Essay, where ideas take shape, thoughts find depth, and every conversation explores the art of thinking beyond the obvious. And today I have my special guest. Been working with the homeless since 1984, operates shelters, food banks, outreach, COVID outreach, monitor hospitals for an unsafe discharge, and of course, hate crimes on the homeless. No other than Mr. Sean Cononie.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome to Abstract Essay, Mr. Sean. And can you please introduce more something about yourself that I missed?
Well, we just recently opened up a mass shooter prevention line, crisis rage hotline for potential shooters to call and get help since they're suicidal. We just opened that up last year. The phone number is 605 no shoot. So our goal is to get people who are in crisis, get them to call 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. They don't even have to tell us who they are. They can use a burner phone, and we want to talk to them to try to de-escalate them.
Yes, Mr. Sean. Thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. And today, let's talk about why there is a homeless in America. Beyond individual stories, what are the target systemic factors that act as primary engines of homelessness in the US today?
Well, a lot of people think homeless people are bums. They don't want to work. They want to be homeless. Farthest thing from the truth. Uh, they homeless people experience what we call barrier. For instance, it's just not one thing that keeps them homeless or makes them homeless. It's a multitude of things. For instance, if a person has a seizure disability, uh, number one, it's hard to get a job because no one wants to put you on a payroll. If you have a seizure at work, it'll be workers' comp if you fall over and hit your head, or too many times the ambulance comes and picks you up at work. So that becomes a barrier where people you become unemployable. That person may become homeless. And if they become homeless, they're sleeping in public streets because there's never enough beds. So what happens next? They get arrested for trespassing, get arrested for sleeping and lodging in public. So now they have a criminal record. Some of these people have 30, 40, 50 trespassing arrests. I seen a guy one time with over 1,500 trespassing arrests. So, how does a person get a job with such criminal activity? Someone runs them and they say, no, I'm not going to hire this guy. So, that's another barrier that keeps them homeless. Now, if they don't work, can't work, then what happens next? Their health declines. They have no health insurance. They don't have, if they get a disability check, the disability check may be $1,000 a month out of SSI because they're not going to have a good work history because they've had a seizure disability. So now, how does a person live? There's no such thing as affordable housing anywhere in the country. We have Section 8, of course. So all these little things, we call them barriers. And these barriers not only make them homeless, but keep them homeless. And so when you see a homeless person on the side of the street, don't call them a bum. They're a victim of circumstances, and it's sad.
True. Help them,
Another
people.
thing is, if I
Yeah.
interrupt for a minute, what happens next? You get depressed, start using substances, alcohol, drugs. Hey, if I had to sleep on the street, I'd be drinking myself to bed. Trust me.
And how has the widening gap between stagnant wages and the skyrocketing cost of housing directly fueled the crisis?
There's no such thing as an affordable living wage. There's no such thing as affordable housing. It has gotten really bad. I just had this conversation with my son, and like, how are the kids going to afford a home? My mom and dad paid $16,000 for a home in 1965. That house just sold for $600,000 after my mom and dad sold it like 20 years ago. How does someone afford that? Starting off a family, it's impossible unless you have two working parents who may have a total of three jobs.
Hmm. Yes. And what role does drastic shortage of affordable and available rental homes for extremely low income household play, Mr. Sean?
Well, cities outzone the poor. A lot of cities say, oh, they want a house has to be so big or so, can't be this small. Now, there's been cases and, an advocacy that goes after cities when they try to outzone the poor. But like where I live, a one bedroom apartment, maybe $2,500 a month to rent.
Hmm,
And how much do you have to make to pay that? Well, according to credit, you probably have to make about $8,000 a month. Who makes $8,000 a month at age 20, 25, 30? Not many.
true. And Mr. Sean, let's talk about the healthcare and social safety nets. How is homelessness a public health crisis? Discuss the intersection of unaffordable healthcare, lack of mental health services, and substance use disorders.
Well, the homeless, unfortunately, do burn the bridges. They go back and forth to the emergency room because they want a meal, they want to get a good night's sleep. So the emergency rooms do get tired of them. Um, Although a lot of them have underlying health conditions, a lot of them. I can go out and do outreach day and find if I made contact with 50 people, probably 8 to 10 of them have active infections on their legs, cellulitis. Some people have maggots inside their legs from, flies living on the streets. We see that quite frequently. So, healthcare, horrible. Mental health, horrible. Beds, horrible. The whole situation's horrible.
Hmm.
It's not going to get any better because now we want to say, hey, if you're homeless, you can't sleep in public spaces or you're going to go to jail. What is that? That's backwards. We've been
Backwards.
backwards in this country in the last 10 years.
And what are the specific challenges for veterans who often face a combination of PTSD, physical injury, and difficulty when reintegrating into civilian life?
I think that the DOD needs to develop more programs before they become civilians again. Maybe some good leave time before they retire, maybe a year before, maybe give them 2 months off where they feel not so structured. So when they do get out of the military, then they can feel that non-structured. I have a buddy of mine did 20 some years in the military, and he became suicidal because he missed the brotherhood. He missed that bonding, the relationship, which was shocking because he was a mental health person in Iraq. Uh, but well, let me put it this way: the veterans have it really sad right now. Um, in our nation's capital, where this is our holy grail um, of our United States. Now we're telling veterans, get the hell out of here, move, and we don't have beds for them. So all we're doing is doing Greyhound therapy, and Greyhound therapy is described by just getting them out of town, like the Greyhound bus routes. They're just moving them out there's not enough services nowhere.
Nowhere, for sure. Nobody will help them. So, how does the foster care system act as a pipeline to homelessness for youth aging out of it without a support network?
I think Florida. I know they did this years ago. I think they got services up to 21 and even go further. I guess it depends on the state.
Hmm.
Uh, I've seen mm, maybe 20 kids, 30 kids who had services past 18. A lot of these kids have anger problems, um, been abused, hard work history. I got a guy right now, see, complete seizure history, who's had no luck ever at a job, except for one time we had a job for a year. His boss was sympathetic, but he functioned. If you worked around his disability, because what our agency did is we took the homeless who are supposed to be lazy and they ran our whole shelter system from sun up to sundown. They cooked. They work the front desk. We train them to be first responders. We show them how to handle seizures, how to use automatic defibrillator. They gathered food and got it on an airplane to Haiti with 70 doctors for the earthquake. Homeless people did this. So they're not lazy. They work hard and pretty smart. They may have disabilities, but they're very they can do a lot of things.
Yes. So, Mr. Sean, let's talk about the policy and structural failures. What are the unintended consequences of urban renewal and zoning laws that have historically limited the construction of affordable housing?
Well, take me for example. I opened up a shelter with not 1 ounce of planning. They found a guy on the street, took him to the hospital. He was very disheveled. The hospital discharged him. Like 2 weeks later, I'm like, "Where'd you put him? Back on the street. There's no beds." I said, "Well, that's crazy." I put him in an apartment. 2 months later, I had 40, 50 people at a homeless shelter with no planning. The city utilized this so much because we had the beds. But when we got too big, the city pretended like they didn't know who we were. Came after us, cost me $500,000 in legal fees. 7, 8 years later in the federal court, we won the case, but they came after us heavy. So it basically takes an act of God to one to put up a homeless shelter. Oh, I hear these commissioners in meetings. We love the veterans. Oh, they're great. They serve the country. Oh, let's not put a shelter there. It's not a good place to put a shelter. So NIMBY plays a very important part. Not in my backyard. No one wants anybody anywhere. So no shelters, no affordable housing. Get rid of the poor. Make laws where they can't uh, even ask for $1 on the street. Put them in jail for sleeping on the bus stop. You name it, they've outsold the poor in this country.
Yes, definitely. So, how does the criminal justice or justice system perpetuate homelessness?
Down here, we have something called outreach. Uh, for some cities, it's a dog and pony show. The cops go out, make it look like they're helping the homeless, and some of them do. And then we have very good police officers who really go out and help the homeless. But some of these cities just do it as a dog and pony show, and it's kind of sad because some of those cops I've seen do some bad things, horrible things. But I have many friends who do it as police officers, and they do a great job at it.
Mr. Sean, why is it housing first model is effective and yet is still so political challenging to implement widely?
You know, we did housing first 25 years ago, but we didn't call it housing first. It was housing first with mom and dad living on the property. So giving them long-term housing is fine, but you got to have supportive services. I don't believe in the standard we're using now, where you just take a person who has so many problems and just put them in an apartment because it's cheaper to put them in an apartment than service them, and you don't require them to be clean and some housing first, which is great. They're still getting housing, but I think you need to have mom and dad on property. What I mean by that, you need to have a community, one community for the homeless who are housing first, or if they fall, we pick them back up. If they got relapse, we pick them back up. We don't discharge them, and we're always there to assist them.
Mr. Sean, let's talk about the demographics and specific populations. We often see single adults, but what is the shocking reality of family homelessness and how does it differ in cause and solution?
Well, family homelessness is a growing trend. You'd be surprised how many kids go to bed at night not at home. I would say it's gotten worse. They sleep in cars. If they get caught, they're in trouble. Finally, the states like Florida doesn't take away a child because mom and dad are homeless. That is kind of a good thing because before they were just removing them. And once you get a kid removed, you're never going to get him back. It's so hard to get him back. So, um, growing trend, going to get worse like
Hmm.
anything else.
And Mr. Sean, why are LGBTQ plus youth disproportionately or yes represented among the homeless population?
Well, as far as juveniles are concerned, uh,
Yes.
it's you have the Covenant House, which will take any teen, which is fantastic. I have no. We have serviced gay people for a long time. We took in transsexuals, um, and that was a very hard population to take. But we did because nobody else wanted them. They didn't know where to put them in the male dorms, the female dorms. We didn't worry about that. We found a room that was liberal, and they fit in quite well. But they had a lot of baggage, a lot of barriers, constant getting beat up, hard to handle because of so many issues that they have. Let's face the fact they didn't, they didn't wake up in the morning and say, "Today I'm going to be a transsexual."
Mm-hmm.
And for people to judge them that way is horrendous because that's probably one of the hardest lifestyles to live. No one picks and says, "Oh, I'm going to do that today." So even being gay, you have kids being thrown out of houses all the time. Maybe 20 years ago, a lot more. If you became, honest and told your parents you came out of the closet, chances are if they didn't like it, you'd be thrown out of the house. I've seen a lot of use like that over the years. Shelters are pretty good with the gay and lesbian community.
Mr. Sean, how does the domestic violence for survivors, primarily women and children, to choose between abuse and the streets?
Well, let me start off by saying this: if there's any females out there listening to this great podcast, if you get beat once, it will never stop. So if someone says, "I'm sorry," and they beat you up, they're not sorry. It's going to happen again. So get yourself away from that person as soon as possible because there's no excuse for a man to beat up a woman. As far as beds are concerned, very short and beds, but now domestic violence programs are using hotels with hotel vouchers. Sometimes the female will go back to the guy, violates the rules, they'll kick them out. Girl gets beat up again. Shelter won't take him because he violated the rules in the first place. Another hard population to deal with.
Mm, yes. So let's talk about the myth and public perception. What is the most persistent and harmful myth about homelessness that you like to permanently dispel?
They're definitely not lazy. They definitely don't want to be on the street. They're not all drug addicts, not all alcoholics. Some of them are super intelligent. I had a judge in my program, a Broward County judge, who gave arrest orders and issued warrants. He became homeless because of an addiction problem. So there's, hey, homeless people are people. I think the Bible says it the best: the poor will be among us forever. So stop it. Stop judging them. Stop treating them bad. Give them services. Sure, they're going to manipulate at times, but you know what? If you're poor and you have no food, of course you're going to manipulate. So there is manipulation, which is true. But help them. They're just people, man.
Yes, they are people too, people. So, how does the narrative of individual failure prevent us to or from implementing effective systemic solution?
Oh wow, um, multitude of reasoning. Many.
Mm-hmm.
Financial is one of them. So
So, financial, Mr. Sean, what is the real relationship between homelessness and substance abuse? Does one more often cause the other?
well, substance abuse will cause a person not to go to work, which will therefore make them homeless. If they're not addicted to alcohol or drugs when they hit the streets, like I said earlier, that I would drink myself to sleep. So yeah, you become addicted very easily on the streets. Um, not all homeless people out there are drinking and drugging. A large percentage of them do not do it. And a large percentage does do it. So some estimates I've heard 30, 40%. I've heard 10%. I've heard people who are very right saying 80% of people are addicted to drugs and alcohol that are homeless. I guess it depends on what population you're doing your sample from.
Mm. Mr. Sean, let's talk about the solutions and pathways forward. Beyond emergency shelters, what are the most evidence based long term solutions that have proven to work in cities that made progress?
We will have the poor among us forever. Um, Give me an example. So, shelters have some messed up rules, and some people don't want to go to them. Even our shelter had some rules that we had to apply because of group living. So there's never going to be one program to fit the needs of all the homeless. There has to be several different types of programs where, again, if I won Powerball tomorrow, the first thing I do is buy 5,000 acres of land in Florida and open up a town for the poor in the country and say, come to me. And I would take them all because I know that you have to be able to swing different ways when you handle the homeless. And I adapt to their needs. We don't expect them to adapt to my needs. We have to adapt to their needs because they have so many needs. And those needs that they have don't always allow them to qualify for certain programs.
Hmm, definitely. So, what is the role of preventive policies like eviction and moratorium or legal counsel for tenants in stopping homelessness before it starts?
There definitely should be prevention programs set up. You ask somebody who's a landlord, they're going to say, why should I not be able to kick somebody out of my house if they're not paying rent? I can understand that because of mortgage rates and having expenses, especially in Florida where insurance could be as much as eight to $10,000 for wind coverage. So I understand why people want to get paid, but we have to be. Florida has a pretty good eviction law. On the other hand, it can be lousy, depending on how you look at it. Um, but prevention programs in general should be utilized more so than eviction. If a person's going to be homeless because they can't pay their rent, they should be able to go to a place and be evaluated and say, okay, are you going to be, if I pay your rent, are you going to be able to pay your rent next month? Or how many months will you need? Again, it's only going to be a temporary band aid over the problem because nothing works and a whole because there's so many problems. Where's the affordable housing? It doesn't exist. Homeless advocates, since I've been doing this, have been fighting for affordable housing and a living wage. And again, it doesn't exist. Sure, there's some Section 8 out there, but to get on the list, and it's hard to apply for when you're homeless. To get to qualify for a Section 8 housing. We're going to have the poor among us. We just got to learn to deal with it. It's going to exist. There's no cure, but we try our best.
Yes. Try your best for sure to eliminate homelessness. And Mr. John, how can the private sector, from corporations to landlords, be effectively engaged as a part of the solution?
Everybody needs to be charitable in a little way, and everybody has to have a gift of some sort. And I'm not talking about money or donations all the time. Just being able to be in a position to direct someone where to go. If you see someone homeless, say, hey, you can call this number and get a place to stay. Why are you homeless? Ask them. Well, I couldn't pay my rent because I just moved here or whatever. And they give you an excuse. You try to deal with it. There are many ways to help, and everybody should help do something. Even the smallest little thing works. I didn't intend to be a shelter. I just helped a guy. I was feeding the homeless 20 years before that, but I never thought I could run a shelter. It happened by accident.
Yes, and thank you for that advocacy, Mr. Sean. We salute you for that. And thank you for helping the homeless people in the US. So let's talk about the personal action and hope. For someone listening who feels overwhelmed by the scale of this problem, what is the concrete or what is one concrete effective action but they can take in their own community to help?
Well, every county in the country has what they call a coalition. Or you can a person if they may live in an area they can call the National Coalition for the Homeless in Washington. I was a board member there for a while. They can tell you where you can volunteer at. Get involved in that way. Unfortunately, you get arrested these days if you feed the homeless. So be very careful that you're allowed to feed the homeless in the community. A good friend of mine who was 98 got arrested several times for feeding the homeless. Um, but yeah, just try to get involved. Help. Simple. Again, I didn't plan to do what I did.
Mm,
It's
yes,
possible. One person can make a change. And if
make
you can't do it, you pray.
make the difference for sure. Mr. Sean, before we wrap up our discussion for today, I'm inviting you to please do listen to my other podcast, people. My other podcast, because my abstract essay is already in fifth season, abstract poetry in second season, and my book 101 review in fifth season too. Comedy 101 in second season, and my food 101 in fifth season as well. Geography 101 in fourth season, and my baby podcast Law 101 and mental health 101 love letters in third season, and movie 101 review and music 101 in fourth season, and science 101 and sex 101 in its fourth season. Please listen to them wherever you listen your podcasts. So, what gives you hope for shows you have a model, or you a model of a community that is successfully reducing homelessness?
Our shelter in itself was a community. So, it, yeah, we're a community. And there needs to be more people who are active in their community to help.
Mr. Shan, thank you so much for sharing your knowledge and wisdom to the world. So, can you please invite our listeners to support your advocacy, your projects, or anything you want to promote?
Yeah, they could go to either www.masshooting.org or the homelessvoice.org.
Yes. Yes, people, let's support Mr. Shan because if you support him for sure, more and more and more empowering advocacy to come. So, Mr. Shan, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you and have a God pleasant night.
Monica, people, see you soon.